We're on to the double main event. And I don't think you need to say a whole lot more than just put that up on the screen right there.
I'm so excited.
Look at this friggin' match. Will Ospreay might be the best wrestler in the world. I'm close to that opinion. He's 1 and 1A behind the challenger in the following match here for me. But Kenny Omega coming back to New Japan, coming back to the Tokyo Dome. This is an all-time New Japan legend, one of the great foreign stars they've ever had. And what can you say? You're just going to get a classic match between two guys who have really hit their stride, not only athletically, but in telling a story in the ring. And that's what we're going to get out of these last two. People who are master storytellers. Again, who wins this thing? Well, it depends. How much do we have Kenny Omega? I don't have a problem, Chris and Jeremy, with Kenny Omega being Mount Everest that Will Ospreay has to one day climb. I'm okay with it not being January 4th. If you aren't sure or know you can't really get Kenny too much going forward, then it might be time to trigger it with the idea that now Will Ospreay is an all-world wrestler. With this match, they're already making the U.S. title basically what the Intercontinental title was, which is something that can headline any show, period. So, again, I know it's a cop-out, but either way, it depends. Is it Kenny Omega? I kind of feel like Kenny is going to win this from some of the things that the build-up to this match, some of the things Kenny said in character in interviews make me feel like that's where they're going with this, that this is going to be Will Ospreay's Mount Everest, and that Kenny is going to be the last thing standing in his way. What's your feeling on this? Do you agree, or do you think this is Ospreay's coronation?
Jeremy, why don't you go first on this one?
I think you're right. I think Omega is going to win this match. I'm just gonna go with it. I'm gonna tell you right now. I think he loses and then he challenges for the title at Dominion, the IWGP Heavyweight title, against the winner of the next match in June. And I think that we are going down a route where there are going to be 4 blockbuster people at the top of New Japan. And one of them is a freelancer, but they will all be in the mix and they will all be competing with each other for the next calendar year.
Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting to tie the two. Well, tying the two together.
Yeah, well, there is a story, isn't there?
There's a story with
there's a Jay White Kenny Omega
absolutely,
story to be
told. And I'm under the impression that that's the story they wanted to tell at Forbidden Door. But
yeah,
Kenny,
I think there's an orbit of these 4 guys for the next year.
But Kenny didn't get healthy in time.
Yeah.
To do the Forbidden Door match with Jay at that time. So that match is still on the table. And I didn't really think about tying these top 4 dudes together. But damn, I like that. That's a good time. And see, here's the thing. They want to run Omega Ospreay in the US.
Certainly.
They want to run Omega Okada in the US.
Absolutely.
And they're going to want to run Kenny J in Japan. And in the US. So if this bond with AEW is strong, all you really need is Kenny Omega.
Yes.
FTR be damned. They're great. Don't get me wrong.
Danielson be damned. Moxley be damned. There's a part of this. There's a part of this. No, the top 4, these are all established within the lineage of New Japan.
Sure.
You bring Bryan Danielson in and you throw him in the mix, but you can't just assume you got that.
All you have to do with Danielson is
show up.
Is book him against some great wrestlers.
Absolutely.
That's all you need.
Round running these 4 right
you start with Zack Sabre Jr. and then maybe you run a Ren Narita thing, right? Like Danielson can just do programs that are around great, just wrestling, just awesome wrestling. These guys have stories, and we're talking like deep stories with history between all of them. So back to just this match.
Yes.
My only question is, are they both going to survive?
Oh, I don't think this is an Ibushi Naito thing. Do you?
I mean, they're gonna do some shit.
They're gonna go hard.
Like,
they're gonna go hard.
they're gonna want this to be the match that this. These two dudes are getting in that ring to set the barometer for the 2020 everyone's 2023 match of the year list on January 4th. They're getting
wrestler of the year.
Sure, but they're getting in the ring with that in mind, and holy hell. I think Kenny wins because I think New Japan's getting the never openweight title back, right? And I think that can slot in kind of where the US lives if Kenny, is kind of just working with it in the US. Yep. We've also seen Kenny Omega with a title of a kind of partner company before when he had
better with two titles. He does look better with two titles.
he had the Impact title, and he was very good and very respectful of that title, right? Yeah. So I think he elevated it significantly. And not that the US title necessarily needs elevation, but it wouldn't suck to have it, back on Dynamite a couple times on a guy like Kenny Omega, kind of like when it was on a guy like Jon Moxley. So I think Kenny wins. I think at some point we get back to Ospreay in the US, maybe Forbidden Door 2, if that's a thing. And I think we start to see some sort of build once Kenny's not the US champion, because Kazuchika Okada doesn't want any title that's not the top title. Mm-hmm. So like Kenny Omega holding that red belt means Okada's off the table for now. And then I think at some point we get Okada Omega in the US as kind of the give back here. So this match is going to kill it. I hope they kind of act like they don't get to do it again, even if they know they do, because my worry is that they leave something behind. And, I get that there's some strategy
there. Give you the nibble for next time.
But damn it, I want it all right now. Yeah. And I want it in the Dome because I'm a New Japan homer. So,
I mean, I think maybe storytelling wise, they might hold something back. Move wise, I doubt it. I just feel like there's a lot of motivation here, and we're going to get to that when we talk about the next match as well. But there's just so many layers to this. I mean, eventually, Kenny right now is acting like a dick in his interviews in character, talking about how
good.
It's fantastic.
Negging. He's the very definition of negging.
he is the reason that they brought it up. Will Ospreay, they went with Will, and look where it's gotten them. It's just, it's just not anywhere near how things were when it was me and all this kind of stuff. So he's the heel in this. Eventually, he's going to be the babyface against Jay when they have that whole thing where they crash into each other, just saying, well, Kenny has torches to pass here. He's got torches to pass to Jay. He's got a torch to pass to Will as being the top foreign guy that's not Jay eventually. So I think there's still a ways to go for Will. So I think we're all in agreement that Kenny is going to win what's probably going to be a blockbuster of a match, just an incredible thing. And then the beauty of it is there's a lot of real believable emotional stories to come out of all of these guys. So we're winners in this one. The fans are, no question about it in my mind.
I just want to add one last thing, and that Will Ospreay has had one hell of a back half of 2022. All of his matches on the back half of this year have just been
entire 2022.
I think that was the back half though, and that was something special. Like his entire run defending that belt, just across the board against Naito, against Shota, all that stuff. There are like windows of time that you're just like, that was a special period of time. And yes, his entire year has been great, but there was an extra special segment at the tail end of this year that he has just been next level Will Ospreay. And
I have a lot of conversations with the guys at Voices of Wrestling, and of course Match of the Year is like their big thing, right? Mm-hmm. And I was like, somebody's going to submit a Match of the Year ballot that is strictly 10 Will Ospreay matches. and honestly,
and I'd be wrong.
What are you missing besides, I guess, Briscoes and FTR, right?
Like if it's all of it, maybe one or two WWE matches, but if they're not at the same caliber as a Will match.
But if you're really into just singles wrestling,
yeah,
I can't debate that.
I can't. If somebody said it, I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
but what about this? Nope. This is my
sure. I don't like tag matches. Okay. Well, then I guess that's where you're at. But so the other thing is I didn't think Will could match 2019 when he was in Best of Super Juniors.
Yes.
And then he did a great G1 run and he had a great Wrestle Kingdom match that year too. And by God, he well surpassed 2019 in 2022.
I honestly wasn't sure he was going to pull his head out of his ass in 2020 or 2021 when he had all that stuff going on with the belt and all that stuff. So, like, him getting his act together, him coming out and wrestling like potential match of the year candidates on a weekly, if not monthly basis,
daily.
It's just like, God damn.
Yeah. He's had some special matches for Rev Pro too. I mean,
the Oku match is fantastic. I mean, there's so we could do a whole episode.
Maybe we will.
Yeah, you might.
So this is the perfect segue, though. We're talking about Will Ospreay maybe having 10 of the best matches the entire year. Will Ospreay possibly being the best in the world, and this match almost certainly being a match of the year candidate. So the fascinating thing about this is perhaps the only two men in the world that can eclipse it are in the next match, because this is the final match of the night. Double main event. They have it listed as going on last, which says a lot to me about how it's going to turn out to me. Anyway, Kazuchika Okada, the challenger G1 winner, one of the all-time greats in professional wrestling, against Jay White, who I feel is one of the best big match performers in this era of this industry. Now, Jay can sometimes take a six-man off, but when this guy is in the main event singles match, he's one of the great storytellers, one of the great wrestlers. He will make you feel you hate this little son of a bitch, and he's going to do it again. And I'm thinking that if there is a match on earth, and you just give me a piece of paper and a pencil and just say, write down a match that could eclipse maybe Ospreay and Omega, I think this is it. So we're going to get it right on the heels of that. Jay White, Kazuchika Okada. They have been playing up the fact that Jay White has a 4-1 record against him in singles matches. This is going last. With that said, it feels to me like Okada's going to win the title back here. One, he's their safety blanket anyway. They always go to Okada when they think they really need to. And again, they have another huge show to sell tickets to coming up soon. Now, I also don't see them just saying, well, here's the guy you hate. Oh, he won. He's the champion anyway. Your hero failed. Good night, everybody. That's not the way that New Japan does things. It's the way, that's too WWE for them. I don't think they're going to send the crowd home unhappy like that. So I feel like there's going to be probably stuff going on after this match that I'm sure we're about to talk about. But another match that is just going to be otherworldly, I think. And I do feel like Okada is going to walk out of this with streamers, with that belt around his waist again and his music playing. Am I wrong? Am I misreading this? Is Jay going to retain here? Jay's got a lot to do in the next year, and all of it in semi-main events or main events. So what do you think, Chris? Where are we going?
It's harder for me because I believe I look back to 2018 where it was the Naito coronation, right? It was Naito's moment.
Boy, we were sure it was anyway.
We were so sure, almost as sure as you are right now, that Kazuchika Okada's walking out with that belt, right?
Yeah.
And oh my goodness, it didn't happen. And this year feels so much like that year. Mm-hmm. And I know I keep going back to it, but like it feels so I think New Japan, Gato, whoever, the business side of things too, they recognize that as a huge turning point for their business and a growth point for a 2-year run for a huge growth trajectory for the company. Now, if gun to my head, I'm probably betting on Okada because how can you not? Also because I have such high hopes that someone very interesting then comes out after the match and really sends people home happy, right? And I don't think that person. I hope Katsuyori Shibata walks down that ramp at the end of Wrestle Kingdom with Okada holding the belt, and it's a quick pivot. Boom, Shibata's back. He's wrestling Okada, and they're gonna they're going to run back the match that almost literally killed the man.
The man that almost killed him. Yeah.
I mean, how, like, that's the moment. So I'm watching for, is Shibata a like presence, and are they showing him, or are they waiting for him to be a big surprise? Either way might work. So I have the deepest hope that that's what's happening. I mean, he's doing a UWF match with Tom Lawler in like 6 hours. Like, the man is trying to get out there. And G1 finals and Tokyo Dome have been these moments where Shibata shows up. So I do not have my hopes up for that, because there's some weird situation where New Japan doesn't want Shibata to wrestle. I mean, maybe they probably just don't want the liability of the man like dying on their watch, but
yeah, I think they're afraid of it. Yeah.
I mean, I would be too after what happened. Right. But with all that said, I hope like hell, if Okada wins, that's what happens. The other thing that I think is actually a longer shot than that is then Ibushi comes out.
Ibushi, yeah, that's what I had. Right. I had it too.
Like, that's the longer shot.
Yeah.
It's crazy that's the longer shot than Shibata.
But that's where we are.
But that's where we're at.
That's where we are. But that's what I thought too.
But that would also pop me. I mean, I would run around my house like a maniac if that's what happens. Especially after he gave that interview where he said, "Oh, maybe AEW, or maybe I'll start my own promotion." And I thought, boy, that sounds like a red herring. I mean, he's a wacky
man. That sounds like a red herring.
He's a wacky dude. So it's hard. It's hard to read, right? So those are my two like deep lore hopes.
Yeah.
And I don't have high hopes that either of those things happen. But my God, that would light a fire under this promotion if Okada's the champion. Because what else do you do with Okada as the champion? Like, that's a way bigger discussion.
That's my question.
Like, but if you can throw Shibata or a returning Ibushi at it, or God knows who else, right? I mean, but none of the AEW guys of note are going to be available to like wander down the ramp, right? Like, we're not going to see Danielson show up here, right? No. So, but I do think they have to move quickly. They're going to have to set something up in the post-match. Immediately. It's got to happen. This isn't going to be one where it fades to black with the streamers going. What I'll say about the match, Jay White feels cold because he hasn't been in Japan very frequently, but in a vacuum, looking back on this match, it's going to be an objectively fantastic match. I will guarantee that. Build be damned, right? I know that this match feels cold, right? But if you know anything about these two wrestlers, and if you know anything about Jay White, he is so good in these moments. Okada is a pro's pro in these moments. This is big. And the match is maybe it's not going to feel like a groundswell of this big moment happening, but this match is going to be awesome in almost the entirely opposite way of Ospreay and Omega. This one's the psychology match. And not that they're not playing up really good story and really good psychology, but it's a totally different lane. And that's what's so awesome about this card, is that these top two matches, holy cow, they couldn't be more different, but they're both right at the precipice of, literally the best pro wrestling on the planet.
Chris, you stole my talking point.
I'm sorry. You get me going. That's why I let you go first on the last one, because I knew I had a lot to say about this one.
It's so fascinating, and these are very proud men, and Kazuchika Okada and Jay White are going to be, that they've already been talking. They are just saying to each other, we can't have the second best match tonight. We can't. And the funny thing is, Kenny and Will are saying the same thing. They were like, we have to have match of the night. And there are two that are, sometimes you can just go in and steal one out of nowhere and things. But it's these two. It's going to be so great. Jeremy, what do you got on this?
I'm with Chris that this was a very cold match build in retrospect. There just has not been enough to elevate it into overdrive. Like a lot of their previous matches have been built, like the MSG match, a couple of their other Wrestle Kingdom matches. So I'm not there yet, but when the bell rings, I'm going to be all in, because like Chris said, these guys are the best in the world. Like, they'll be able to turn it on. Objectively, they're going to have a fantastic match. All that stuff is completely indisputable. My guess, and I'm going to outlier this one. I think Jay White wins. I think it's intrinsically more interesting for the promotion if he is the champion, and there is a sense to me that Okada has a little bit more of a chase before he reacquires it right now. I don't know. They're just like the chase to get this belt back has felt procedural more than passionate. And for me, I'd like to see more passion from Okada as he's desperate to win this title back, or at least way more focused than what we've had post G1, because it was a fantastic G1 story, and then they pumped the brakes. It was just like, I'm not going to defend this briefcase. If you want to fight me, you can, but as far as I'm concerned, my shot at Jay White is done. And that's great. That's fantastic. But there was dramatic tension throughout the last couple months that suffered as a result. So that would be my only critique. I do kind of think that Jay White wins this match, but really the real winner of the fans. So,
Yeah, it's true. I keep going back to the whole thing about the record. They keep mentioning 4-1, 4-1, 4-1. Again, nothing happens by accident.
I mean,
I don't know that there's a difference between 4-1 and 5-1. So I think the only reason, if you're going to mention that, is if Okada's going to tighten it up a little bit. That's another thought.
5-1 sounds better than 4-2.
But here's the thing: there's no direction on what the commentary guys say,
right?
And that, because Jay hasn't been around, that's the only story we've got.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the long and short of it. That's all we've got to work with right now, because we haven't done any more. And part of me thinks that, like, on the booking side of things, they're like, what do we need to build? These guys are great. Yeah, and they're great. They're established guys. This is a big match, and they're finally in the main event at Tokyo Dome. This isn't going to be some 14-minute undercard match like they had.
Like 31 minutes, right?
I mean, Jay White and Kota Ibushi had the longest Tokyo Dome match of all time. A couple years ago when they were in the main event. So, like,
incredible match.
Oh, that's one of my favorite matches of all time. And it
really is. Yeah.
You could talk about going too long or pacing, but like, Jay White is a master of that stuff. And Ibushi and Jay White have a special thing too, because Jay White's fantastic. Great wrestlers have great situations with him. Like, the man's good. So they didn't, what build do you need? I guess. I mean, dude won the G1, dude's the champion. I don't know. That works. They're both huge stars. They don't need to elevate either of them.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating. And like you said about Jay, the thing I keep coming back to with that Kota Ibushi thing, and I think we might see a version of it, because, again, I picked Okada. He's their safety blanket. Yeah. When they need to sell tickets for a big event, they usually put him on top and as the champion and things. And I know it could change. And Jay is perfectly worthy, so I'd be okay with it. The way Jay put Ibushi over, like that whole story of combining the Intercontinental title and the World title, and how he was going to hold both belts. And then at the end, after this epic emotional match, he's just with his dying arm, like the Terminator at the end, like reaching for the Ibushi after the match is over and things. It's just a man who had nothing left. He had given everything and had nothing left. Jay's so good at that. I think we might see another version of it here. And the question is, who might come out afterwards? That's going to be intriguing. So just a very special night of wrestling, I think, that we are in store for. There's going to be surprises. I think there's going to be a lot of great matches, of course, but we're going to come out of this with a path for 2023 and going in, and we'll obviously learn more at New Year's Dash. It's going to be a very exciting year and full of just a lot of terrific matchup possibilities. So I'm amped. I'm in. I'm ready. And one question, though, before we move on from this. So do we think Shingo Takagi, who we all like, is going to be at Wrestle Kingdom? If so, where does he show up?
He might be the guy at the very end.
Well, right. So if it's not Shibata, it's not someone totally wild, right? Shibata and Ibushi, I think, categorized as like, holy shit, right?
Yes.
It could be Shingo. It could be Shingo and a band of new brothers, right? Something like that. I think that's the level he probably wants to be at. Or it could be Kenny Omega. Or he could come out and challenge Kenny Omega after the U.S. Championship match.
Yeah.
Because that sounds fun to me, too. That sounds really fun.
I don't think we've seen that, have we? Except was that in a G1? I don't know if we've seen that.
I don't think so, because they didn't really cross paths much.
Yeah.
No, not at
No, not really.
If at all. I mean, very briefly they were both in the company. So maybe somewhere else though, and I'd have to look it up. But so that I think that's an option. That's a really fun option. Otherwise, I mean, there's a chance he's just not on it and he shows up in your dash or somewhere else. There's so many things that I'm like attentive to as this card is going on, because I'm trying to like read some tea leaves. And you know, like we keep talking about this Yokohama Arena show as something that they need to sell tickets to, and maybe they need to put the belt on Okada. What if they've already got the thing that's going to sell tickets to the Yokohama Arena, right? Last year in that slot, it was the Noah show. Tony Khan's talked a lot about when he was talking about Honor Club. He talked a lot about New Japan and waiting till January 4th to really announce X, Y, and Z, and you know, rejuvenating Ring of Honor and Honor Club, and New Japan is going to have some involvement in that. Forbidden Door in Japan, right? Like, what if that is announced earlier in the night, then that changes what I look at in the main event, right? Because then maybe you don't need Okada to sell the tickets. Maybe you actually need someone who speaks English and lives in the US to sell the tickets.
Well, no.
I mean, the only other thing that I could say is like we're predicating everything on the idea that it has to be somebody showing up. There can always be a video package of somebody. I mean, that's how they did the Kenny Omega thing at the historic X-Over. So, like, the possibilities really are endless. It's just the carrier method of delivering to the fans that this is all going to be happening. And that's what it comes down to. So there's so many bright options coming out of this card, coming out of the cooperation with other promotions, mainly AEW and that kind, because WWE and WWE
and Ring of Honor when it comes down to it, and Ring of Honor, right? Because that's the old school New Japan relationship.
Yes.
And now maybe Tony Khan can kind of be the cultivator of that relationship again, and maybe that's the lane for Ring of Honor, because they don't have a lane right now, so
they're kind of flailing, and they need something to anchor themselves in wrestling to define what they are in retrospect to everybody else.
Right. God, there's so much happening. I love it.
Yeah.